Hello and welcome to the Sport for Business Daily interview. I'm joined this morning for what is something of a special session on racism. It has been all across our television screens and running through many of our minds, especially over the last couple of weeks. But what I'd like to talk about today is how it's actually not just the last couple of weeks that are important, it's the long-term consequences. I'm delighted to be joined by Ken McCue. Ken is a leading light within Sport Against Racism Ireland. I've known him for a number of years now, and his heart and his head are very much in the right place about this. So good morning, Ken, and thanks very much for taking the time out to join us. I just want to play out first a small little audio clip from a guy called Stephen Jackson, who was a leading NBA player. He knew George Floyd. They met each other down in Houston. And this was Stephen Jackson speaking at a press conference towards the beginning of the last couple of weeks, shortly after George Floyd had been murdered. And his words struck me as I think that they might strike you.
To my white brothers, I love you. Every race here, I love you. But it comes to a point now where if you love me and you're not standing on the side of me, your love don't mean shit.
They're pretty evocative words. And you know what struck me about them was the fact that we all intrinsically understand that what we saw on the streets of Minneapolis was just wrong on so many levels. But then we move along and we go about our business and we do something else, because you, Ken, me, we're both white guys, probably past the first flush of youth. I've lived as an Irishman in London. I've experienced some degree of racism, but nothing like you would ever imagine, to be the case that it just seems to be the daily lot of people, not only in the United States, but here as well. I just want to read out, before we go into our chat, I want to read out the Sport Against Racism Ireland, the statement that you issued just after the George Floyd murder. It says that we stand in solidarity with all those around the world who are speaking out about racism. We are deeply saddened by the injustices taking place in the United States, and we believe in seeking justice for George Floyd. There is no room for racism. SARI will continue to deliver our annual projects, programs, and events to inspire, unite, and educate, and to create an inclusive Ireland for all. Education is key to breaking down barriers and challenging racism and all forms of discrimination. We must continue to work together to ensure basic human rights for all. Sport has the power to unite and change the world. Again, powerful words. What can we actually do? Rather than just going out and marching and shedding a tear and watching CNN, what can we actually do to make this right?
Yeah, well, just on the marching thing, like marching and the news can last for a few days almost. Like we marched 10 years ago when one of the Encyclic Glentoran trainees, Tayosi Shitabi, he was 15-year-old. He was murdered for his skin color, and we marched in, and we were hoping there would be change, fundamental change in society here, but that we haven't really learned all that much. It's still here, and it's very much in sport, and sport has the power does have the power to change the world, as Nelson Mandela said. So we need to put in, demands. It's fine to have a reaction like the Black Lives Matter. That's important, but we need to actually work hard at it and have a long-term, a short-term, medium-term, and long-term objective. I think the sports organisations have a very major role in this, because the likes of the FAI, GAA, IRFU, they're the big three, but we have 50-odd organisations that we would work with, and they all need to step up to the plate, as to use the baseball term. I'm very impressed by the NFL statement overnight, where they came out and said, look, we made mistakes, we didn't recognise racism. I think
the fact of I guess race has not been as much of an issue in Ireland, perhaps, as it is so obviously in the United States. our sporting fields tend to be more uniform in terms of color and creed. So it's not quite so obvious. You're right, making reference to the NFL, where we were all engrossed by Michael Jordan and The Last Dance, and we see that in US sport in particular, to be a person of color, you're going to be much more overrepresented than you would, for example, on a Gaelic field. But we have got breaking through into Kerry teams and Westmeath teams and Dublin teams. We have people that look different, and we're able to accept and we're able to to do the right thing in our own minds. But are we? Like, is that sense of inclusion that Ireland, we should be better than most countries at doing this, because we are an immigrant nation. We have lived this through generations long before us. So we should understand it better. But what is the standard path through which we can actually sort of face our own issues around racism here? Because nobody considers themselves, in my mind, to be a racist. And yet it's what we do and the actions we take that actually define us and are seen in clearer fashion by the people whose actions are impacted by that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing from our point of view, the Saturday point of view, is the importance of defining race, leaving it one single race, human race, with lots of ethnicities. So that's really important, because people get confused. That people here use the term multiracial, interracial, half caste. These are all unscientific terms. So to get the definition, scientific definition right, i.e. the UNESCO definition, is really important that we start from that basis and then look at how we can put in measures like, and it's, as it's mentioned in the statement, education is a key factor in this. And sorry, go into schools around the country, like we were funded by the UEFA Foundation for Children, and we go into schools and do an anti-discrimination workshop. Now that's really important. That's extended and it's recognised by the state, by the Department of Justice and Education and Sport, that that's a valued exercise, and it starts from that basis. We work in primary schools, but it's really important that we're supported by the state in that respect, because it's proven to be very effective.
Okay, there's a psychological sense that we're supposed as human race only to be able to deal with one catastrophe at a time. Now we're living through COVID-19 and the pandemic, in the GAA, in football, and in all sports. Now the focus is going to be on public health and making sure that when we come back, we're going to have to learn new ways of doing things. Is this a difficult time then, more difficult perhaps than normal, to actually have to learn about new behaviors in terms of dealing with everybody, dealing with that multi-ethnicity that is part and parcel of Irish society now?
Yeah, sure. Like it is for us a health issue. It always has been. It's basic human rights, civil rights, and that's all part of it. As we know from Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, that's the package that we should be working to. Which covers such a wide range, wide spectrum of human rights demands, really. So that's really important. In the question of race here, I thought it was really interesting that one of our volunteers, Judy, in a quote in the Irish Times, said that racism here is very silent in many ways. It's different than the in-your-face racism that you will get maybe in the United States of America or in the UK even, but it's there, it's institutional as well. So we get lots of reports from, not just through sport, but because we're on the menu, we get the phone calls and the requests for help, and we direct them to we're part of the Irish Network Against Racism, so we have a live report mechanism. We direct them to that, and we also direct them to Garda, to the police, particularly with the law.
It's often the case in a forum like this that we can be accused of talking rather than doing. And as of today, I want to actually do two things to actually move us in the right direction. I want to offer a complimentary membership of Sport for Business to Sport Against Racism Ireland. I think that we need to move your conversation closer into what we're talking about. So we're gonna do that as of today. And secondly, I want to devote this week's live webinar over to the story of multi-ethnicity, the challenges that players and individuals face within Irish sport that we who exist within Irish sport might not be fully aware of. So I want to actually sort of, open up a window on that. I'd love for you, Ken, if you're able to join us for that. I'd also like to throw open an invitation for athletes and for those who have a story to tell to actually join us. We'll go live between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock this Thursday. Which will be Thursday, June the 11th. And we'll invite members of the Sport for Business community to join us, perhaps to listen, but it's in listening that we actually form the opinions that enable actions to move on from there. We can talk about programs that are in place. We can talk about the things that we can actually do rather than just talk about, to make sure that we're as well educated as we possibly can be in this area of which has become so crucial.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much. It's very generous of you. And I think it'd be good to be part of your family there, and we would like to bring the conversation that you mentioned forward into dialogue and argument as well. To sometimes you need to shake the cage a little bit, to get people to realize that is a huge problem.
Okay, well, let's do that. So join us again on Thursday morning, 11 o'clock. Where we'll have the latest of our live webinar series devoted over to that. You can check out the details on the website. It'll be coming up just off of the back of this interview as well, and we look forward to seeing you all then. So for the moment anyway, a big thanks to Ken. I wish that we were talking in better circumstances, but let's try and make sure that the circumstances are better for us here in Ireland and hopefully then around the world. Thanks, Ken.
Okay.